Okay, I wanted to go today's subject. The Nathaniel Jeanson is Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson and YDNA haplogroups, a creationist critics, and I wanted to go with discuss with you in Jeanson. Dr. Jeanson believes the lost tribes of Israel belongs to LYDNA. And I want to find out with you through what he's writing. And this subject is, um, well, actually, um, you comment, let me know. Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson of Answers in Genesis, you can find it on YouTube, who has a PhD in biology from Harvard University, has written a book called Traced Human DNA's Big Surprise. While I love that he has tried to identify the YDNA in a creationist timescale, I do not agree with his overall conclusions. I do not agree with him not taking into account ancient DNA discoveries. So there are some disagreement with the other uh, DNA uh, bio scientist and what his idea. And this is something I want you to focus on. Um, this person thinks that he has misdiagnosed who the Jews and the lost tribes are. In my opinion, based on my study of the YDNA haplogroups and historical evidence, in fact, he states that the Jews belongs to TYDNA, which I hold is the Y-DNA signature of the descendant of Esau. TY-DNA is found among Jews, but it is a very small percentage coming from the Herodian Jews. He also believes that the E1b1b Y-DNA belongs to the Cushite sons of Ham, whereas I hold that E1b1b comes from both Shem, E1b1b2 and E1b1b1b, and E-Z1919 and Japheth, E-Z1902, but not Ham at all. By the way, this is something I found these writings. It's not my opinion, but I will continuously read through what he is saying because of it might be that interesting to find out more about all the solutions and what other groups are saying. So let me go and continue. E1b found among Egyptians today is mostly from E1b1b1a. E-V, V, V as a Victor, E-V68. From the E-Z1902 branch, which is from Javan, Javan, which is Greek, Y-DNA of the southern Atlanteans, Philistines, and Pelasgians, Greeks. Jeanson thinks that Y-DNA descends from Yoktan, who is a descendant of Shem and Heber. But I think it is good that he has gotten away from the idea that all Europeans are descendants of Japheth. However, his idea that Japheth's descendants are I, J, I and J, I1, I2, J1 and J2. I do not agree with at all. So this writer do not agree what Jeanson said. I hold that Yoktan descendant belongs to all Y DNA haplogroup. Below, I give my present understanding of the Y DNA haplogroups. For example, there are three major groups among the Jewish priests called the Kohanim, who belongs to J1, J2, and R1b. An evolutionary old Earth understanding of history would need to choose one of these and say that is the Y-DNA haplogroup of the sons of Aaron, Kohanim. A creationist interpretation of the Y-DNA tree does not have to do this. In fact, there is an interpretation that holds that all three groups of Kohanim are all buried descendants of Aaron, as Aaron belongs to a haplogroup that all three hold in common. J1 and J2 Y-DNA descend from JY DNA and thus share an ancestor among the Kohanim before J1 or J2 split. However, one needs to keep in mind that I hold that before 100 BC, it is possible that haplogroup mutations occurred across groups of people who shared the same Y-DNA rather than as individual novel mutations. That is the most common way today of genetic change via mutations. Thus, Aaron must belong to IJK Y-DNA or an earlier group in order to be the ancestor of the direct male line of Kohanim, who are J1, J2, and R1b. I do hold that all J1Y DNA men are descendants of Aaron, but only certain men among them are buried Kohanim according to the strict laws for Kohanim in Judaism. As for J2, I hold that this mutational change occurred among certain men who were IJ and IJ AMD JY DNA Israelite from the tribe of Judah, Levite, and the house of Aaron. Thus not all J2 people descend from Aaron on the direct paternal line, but only certain groups within J2. I also hold that a certain group of R1b Aaronite Kohanim among R1b-Z 2103 that are R1b-L5A4 are buried Kohanim. Other R1b-Z 2103 are descendants of Judah, Z2106, and Levi, L277.1, while all men who are R1b-L584 and biological male line descendants of Aaron, only those who remain in the Jewish community and have adhered to the Kohanim marriage laws are valid Kohanim. I hold according to my chronology, which dates the global flood of Noah to 2006-5 BC, that the IJK mutations occurred among the descendants of Heber or Eber in or around 1470 BC, which was the start of a 120-year ice age that ended with the exodus from Egypt in 1350 BC. Thus, Moses and Aaron were born around 1430 BC. They belonged to the IJK haplogroup. The mutations for IJ and K occurred at the time of the exodus among the IJK Heberi in 1350 BC. If Dr. Jeanson was right, and T-Y-DNA was the haplogroup of the descendant of the original Jews, then today only about 2% of the Ashkenazi Jews and 8% of Sephardi Jews. Ashkenazi is a German, Sephardi is a Spain, Portugal. Both are European. Would be direct descendant of Israel, Yaakov. This is patently ridiculous and would seem to feed. Still continue. Okay. What is written here? I want to reveal. It seems to feed anti-Semitism. That's what he's saying, the writer. But I don't know who is writing this. It's about the information, and I got offer for this document, so that's why I wanted to find out. Okay. It would also seem to say that God promised that the descendant of Israel would be a great multitude like the sands in the sea and the stars in the sky to be false. If IJ is Japheth, then it would also seem that the Bible prophecy of Genesis 9:27 about Japheth and the tenth of Shem is wrong. Among Jews today, only 1% of Ashkenazi Jews are LY-DNA and virtually 0% among the Sephardi. Thus, I think it is very unlikely that LY-DNA is that of the lost tribes. I hold that LY-DNA is that of the Moabite and Ammonite descendant of Haran and Lot. The population of the Indus Valley civilization was mostly Haranite descended from Lot's sons, Moab and Ammon. The Haranite belongs to L-M20, period. L-M357, and it is two subclades, L-PK3 and L-L1305, belongs to the Ammonite. The Moabite and the Eastern Ammonites belongs to L-M22 Y-DNA, and the Western Ammonites are L-595 XM22, another word. Of course, Haran and Lot were not L-Y-DNA, but had a haplogroup ancestral to L-Y-DNA. L-Y-DNA occurred among the Harani around 968 BC among the LT-Y-DNA haplogroup. LT was the major haplogroup among the Harani and the Edomic clans of the Heberi. At the time of the Indus Valley destruction, the Haronites probably were LT, Y DNA, or K before 1350 BC, 1350. They were IJK, Y DNA. The original Romans or Latins were TY DNA. In my scenario, I hold that most of those Jews who are IY DNA haplogroups, 4% of Ashkenazi, 5% of Sephardi, 10% of Converso, R1A, 15% of Ashkenazi, 5% of Sephardi, and 2% of Converso, R1B, 15% Ashkenazi, 30% of Sephardi, Converso is 55%. J1, 50% of Ashkenazi, 10% of Sephardi, and 4% of Converso. J2, 15% of Ashkenazi, 70% of Sephardi, and 8% of Converso. A direct male line descendant of Jacob. So that this criticized Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson. He believes that the conversos who converted to the Catholic during the Inquisition in the Iberian Peninsula, more likely those are the descendants of the Jews. So continue reading. I also hold that much of the Jewish E1b comes from the Hushi clan of Dan and the Mushi clan of Levite, who are also direct male line descendants of Jacob, whereas other EY DNA is mostly descended from Jeban, the son of Japheth. Among Jews today, 60% of Ashkenazi, 8% of Sephardi, and 10% of Converso Jews belongs to EY DNA. GY DNA is found among 8% of Ashkenazi, 10% of Sephardi, and 5% of Converso Jews. Again, remember the Conversos are the when Spain had an Inquisition, that the most people left if you don't remain Catholic. They went over to country like Mozambique in Africa or Philippine Island and converted to Catholic, but they mostly both sides of who were descendants of Moors or the Jewish Sephardic Jews. Sephardic means Spain and Portugal, so that who they hide themselves in Jewishness and they escape from Iberian Peninsula. And most people are coming back from this era today. That I think 80% or more that Israeli Jewish citizens are Sephardic. Ashkenazis means German, and mostly in New York City. I hold that G descend from Madai of Japheth, and most Jews of G1 YDNA are descended from Syrian ancestor from Second Temple times, and G2 YDNA among Jews comes mostly from the conversion of the islands to Judaism. I also hold that QY DNA descends from Ishmael and is found among 5% of Ashkenazi, 5% of Sephardi, and 2% of Converso Jews. So that I don't agree with here what he's writing. G haplogroup is mostly found in Persian, Azerbaijani, Georgian, Middle Eastern Jews today, Central Asian Jews, and the historically Persian Empire, Madai made Kurdish has the G haplogroup, and I don't think that they actually called it the Converso. GY DNA is found among 8% of Ashkenazi, 10% of Sephardi, and 5% of Converso Jew. I hold that G descend from Madai of Japheth. Madai of Japheth is correct because of Madai, the Kurds are the sons of Ashkenaz, and that most Jews of G1Y are descended from a Syrian ancestor from the Second Temple times, and the G2Y among Jews comes mostly from the conversion of the Alans to Judaism. I don't believe that. This is not agree with that his writer. Therefore, I1Y found among Jews comes from the tribes of Asher and Gad, and the lost tribes of Israel. I1, and there are I1 group in the I1 and I2, and J and I are related. I2 found among Jews is of the tribes of Dan and Naphtali and the lost tribes. I don't agree here because of the issue is J and I, if this is possible that they belongs to the same lineage, and J1 and J2, Aaron and Levi, J1, and then J2 is a Reuben, Simeon, and Reuben and Simeon, and the 6 sons of Leah. So Issachar and Zebulun. In my belief that Issachar and Zebulun supposed to be I1 is Zebulun, I2 is Issachar, instead of sons of Asher and Gad is I1, and I2 is Dan and Naphtali, because of the totally different lineage of mitochondrial DNA, which is Jacob married to the concubines of Leah and Rachel, which is Zilpah and Bilhah. And it is the paternal line is remained that this has to be, I believe, Issachar and Zebulun is J1 and J2. So this is another controversial writing here. In my opinion, R1A among the Jews comes from the tribe of Joseph and Benjamin, sons of Rachel, and the lost tribe of Israel, as well as R2 belong to Benjamin as well. R1B among Jews comes from the 6 sons of Leah, as well as among the lost tribes of Israel. Thus everyone descended from IJ, and our haplogroups are direct male line descendants of Jacob, Israel, but direct line ancestry is not limited to those haplogroups. I really appreciated the effort Dr. Jeanson has done to propose and fit his understanding to the genetic evidence and his insight into genetics and DNA. Okay, let me continue. I will put this is the number 1, part 1, and I will continue to film it. Part 2, continue.